What's up guys, Landon here from the Full-Time Filmmaker team, and this is the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro. Now Blackmagic announced the newest addition to their Pocket Camera series about 2 weeks ago, and I've only had mine for about a day now, but I wanted to give you my impressions on this new device, and we're also going to take it out in the field and get some 6K test footage so you can see exactly how it performs. Okay, first, let's talk about what makes this camera Pro. Like what makes this version specifically cost $500 more than the original 6K. It's got the same Super 35 HDR sensor, the same exact resolutions and codecs, the same menu system, but the Pro features are literally all physical features of this device. The body of this camera is definitely a bit chunkier. It's surprisingly not awkward to hold though. Like I actually think I like it more than the original 6K when I'm going handheld. It's a good 2 inches taller than the original 6K and it's about the same size everywhere else, but it weighs 3/4 of a pound more than the 6K, so you actually feel like you're holding something that's a little bit more beefy and high end. The main plastic casing is also exactly the same as the original 6K, but while the grip on the old 6K kind of felt like cheap plasticky rubber, the 6K Pro's grip is actually much more grippy, and even though it looks exactly the same, it seems to be a really high quality material. And if you really put these two cameras side by side, you start to notice the difference in size and shape between the two. The chunkiness of this 6K Pro is actually due to a couple of things. First, we now have built-in ND filters, and in my opinion, this is probably the biggest upgrade and why this specific camera stands out as more of a Pro version. We're gonna dive more into the actual performance of these built-in NDs and how they compare to other external filters in the full review, but so far they seem to give you very minimal color distortion. When you really think about it, if you're serious in filmmaking, you're gonna need to get ND filters anyway, so would you rather spend $2,000 on a camera and then $500 on a 2 to 5 stop and a 6 to 9 stop external ND, or would you rather have them all built in for the exact same price? I don't know, just something to think about. And then the second reason actually that this body is a bit chunkier is because of the mount for the optional $500 viewfinder if you're into that. If you unscrew the top plate, you can just plug in the viewfinder, tighten it on, and you're ready to go. It does have a micro OLED display, 1280 by 960 resolution, and it's super clear. It's made of glass. It's definitely a high-end viewfinder. I've personally never really been a viewfinder kind of guy, maybe for like photos here and there, but honestly never for video. It's definitely a personal preference thing, but I obviously do see the benefit of having a viewfinder. Makes it easier to set focus, to frame your shot, dial in your settings. So since it's there, I'll probably start using it more. And on that note, actually one of the biggest cons for me on the original 6K was the display. Like it's huge and it's beautiful, but it doesn't tilt and it is seriously so hard to see it when you're outside. The 6K Pro, on the other hand, is still the same size, but it's about 2.5 times as bright and it tilts up and down. So while this is obviously better than the previous version, I really would have loved to have a fully articulating display that could swing out and up so I can actually like see myself while I'm filming these talking heads. Obviously, I think having some level of articulation was definitely a step in the right direction, but I feel like if you're gonna go to all the work to make an articulating screen, like do it 100%, you know? Like Sony eventually learned that their little articulating screens were not very convenient, so they fixed that with the A7S III. And I don't know, maybe there's a reason behind it, but if it was able to fully rotate, honestly, I think this would have been a near perfect camera. Another new aspect that we get on the 6K Pro is a completely different battery. So on the 6K and the 4K models, it uses Canon LPE6s, roughly 2000 milliamp hour, which I think we can all agree just aren't the best batteries for this specific camera, especially on the 6K because it draws so much power. On the 6K Pro though, we now have the Sony NP-F 570 batteries instead, roughly 3500 milliamp hours, which is obviously an attempt at giving this camera a bit more battery life, so that was definitely a smart move by Blackmagic. And we're gonna do a side-by-side battery test in the full review so you can see how these two stack up in battery performance. What's also nice on the 6K Pro is that if you get the extra battery pack for about $150, it actually allows you to keep a battery in the camera, and then you have 2 more batteries in the battery pack itself, and it's pulling power through these little connectors at the bottom. So you have a total of 3 batteries, which means you can actually hot swap them if you're running low, and you can still keep the camera recording. So you just just pull the battery tray out, replace them, and then slide it back in like nothing happened. Last couple of things that are new here are the extra mini XLR port, so you can plug in 2 separate microphones. And now instead of one, you have 2 1/4-inch threads at the bottom, so you can actually have 2 points of contact with your plate or your rails, whatever you like to use. And with this being a Pro edition, I would have loved to see IBIS introduced in this camera, but it's still not there, as well as an autofocus system, which again is just not there. Blackmagic is actually really good at sending out free updates to their software and devices, so it wouldn't surprise me if autofocus comes later from Blackmagic with a firmware update. All right, so that's what's new, but let's see how it performs in the field. All right, so we found a nice cozy field right here. We're gonna get some test footage on this camera. I have my wife and my son, they're gonna be our models today. So we got some nice tall grass. We got the blue sky, it's golden hour. Really great setting to test out this camera. So actually, even on my 6K, I don't really rig it up. I keep it pretty much just bare bones. I don't like to put a cage on it. I don't like handles on it. I don't do an external SSD or anything either. On the BMPCC 6K Pro, keeping it the exact same actually. We're gonna keep the viewfinder on there. We're gonna be using the 18 to 35 millimeter Sigma art lens. Works really well with this camera. And then obviously we are on the RS2. And occasionally I'm gonna be using some filters from Prism Lens Effects filters. Since this is like a test footage video, I'll let you know if there is a filter on it, just so you're not confused by what has a filter and what doesn't, but we will be using those occasionally here tonight. So we've been shooting for about 45 minutes. I think on the original 6K, right about this time, I probably need to switch my battery. On the 6K Pro, though, we're at about half battery, so it seems to be performing better. Again, I don't have a side-by-side. We will have one in the full review, but so far, so good. All right, hopefully you guys enjoyed that cinematic sequence. Overall, I'm really pleased with this camera. If I had to pick between the 6K and the 6K Pro, I would go for the 6K Pro. I think it's only a slight price bump with a lot of added physical features. Now I'm gonna be doing a 1 month later review in a few weeks, once I've had a little bit more time with this camera, so that'll be a much more in-depth review. We just wanted to get this video out there for you guys so you could quickly see what this camera is like and maybe decide in just this short video if it is the camera for you. But regardless, if you're still unsure, just wait a few weeks, we'll have a full-on review for you ready to go. And if you haven't already, go ahead and check out our 1-hour filmmaking training where we give you our top 10 secrets to creating cinematic videos. That's pretty much it though, guys. If you have any further questions, please let us know.